Hello, welcome to the Esoteric Software stream. My name is Erika, and today we will finish to rig a painting, specifically the faces of the two people depicted into this painting that we see here. This is a painting by Virgin Gottfrid, and it's called Mr. Constantin and Mrs. Berggren. And what we did last time was create the basic bones. We also already created the base mesh for these. And we created the rig for the body of these paintings. We managed to do some interesting rigging concerning the arms and the painting that they're holding. It's like they are fighting for this painting. So this time we're gonna focus on the faces, which is something that I know interests many people. Probably the easiest one to rig is going to be this one, because the character is front-facing. When we have a front-facing character, we can achieve more of a turnaround than when we are forced to have the character into a three-quarter position like this one. So the angle is very limited because, well, we cannot invent pixels where there are none, and so we can only rotate a little bit within the bounds of the image. Let's go to animate mode. So the first time that I did this on stream, I did the opposite of what I should have done, which was I first did the 3D effect. Oh, it was so cool, it worked so nicely. And then I had to redo everything again because it did not open and close the eyes. It was a disaster. So this time I am smarter. First get the characters to open and close the eyes, etc. And then I'm gonna be doing the 3D effect. I'm gonna get at first a new test animation, then I'm gonna literally call test. And I'll give that expression. Now, I've done this a bunch of time, and I found out that my preferred way of doing this is to set the bones in a particular position. It's kind of like giving them this sort of expression. So they close the eyes like this. They also rotate the eyebrows, so they're kind of happy but also sad. Ideally, we want this to line up with the lacrimal duct, so when you try to get them to overlap, the top eyelid should overlap a little bit, go a little bit more down than the lower one. But we can also just get them like this and then we'll adjust. Then for the smile, I usually just translate it here to where the crease starts, so we can simulate a smile. Now she's already a little bit smiling, so that's good. Now let's get the same pose also on the gentleman. Let's actually apply the weights. At first, I want to get as much as possible of the weights to be 100%, because otherwise it's not gonna work when I want to both open and close the eyes, as well as get these to be in fake 3D. When things overlap, I can move my keys a little bit in the front and then go back here and click this button, which creates missing keys for me. Okay, so I can see when they start to overlap, so it's easier to guess what is happening. Okay, now I know that the top one is this blue one, so I can also just click on it and raise it to 100%. Okay, so when it's like this, it's closed. Then I'll get this to also have 100%. Now don't worry too much about the fact that we see the pixels. Actually, this is a huge painting. I'll go back here. They are not overlapping. I select this, I give it 100%. Notice how it's enough to select these two vertices at first, and then the two lower vertices as well. So now they close, and they kind of look okay-ish. They could be better, so I may adjust the keys so they don't overlap that strongly. Okay, seen from afar, without the bones, it actually looks like she can open and close the eyes. Now, we can improve on these, but it's just to let you understand what is happening here. Okay, then usually what I do is I give it a little bit like a half or something like that of the influence here. So I raise it. No, this is the wrong one. This is the one that I need, and just a little bit, maybe a quarter in this case. Then here I do the same, but just for the top, because the top is a little bit more mobile than the lower part here. Okay, and I'll give it a similar weight because I guess that this person is gonna be more or less symmetrical in the way it works. Okay, then let's focus on the eyebrows. Eyebrows are usually pretty straightforward. I'll generally select all of the weights here and try to assign 100%. So it gives this ridiculous expression. I need it to be at 100% at first, because I will tone this down afterwards. So then I assign here 100% of these, and then because it's in the middle, I'll assign it 50%. So it's in a perfect middle. Then from here, I need to get this part to also kind of work. So I'll get usually 50 of these, and maybe a little bit here because they kind of move that area of the face. And then here I'll do similar weights. Let's see the change in expression. If it looks a little bit creepy, it's because maybe I moved too much the bones, but it's only to see the maximum range for the character. It can work, that's good. Then of course, when I'm going to use this, actually I'm never gonna push this so much. I'm actually going to maybe, okay, just do a little bit like this or a little bit like this, and also in more subtle movements, so it's not as strong. Then if I feel like this should not move as much, like because it's too strong, then I could go back to the face holder, which is the general controller for this. Okay, and now I anchored this part down a little bit better. Now let's focus on the lips. As you see, this is a very fast process. It doesn't take too long to do. I need to apply 100% of the lips so they can be controlled by this bone that I placed in the middle. So get it to 100%, perfect. Then we get one side and we raise it to 100%. I'll get to the extreme, okay. And having this expression while I change the weights helps me a lot to understand if I'm going for the right weights or not. I guess something like this, it's fine, but then I have to remember, so maybe I'll give it round numbers, because symmetry in this case kind of makes sense. Okay, here I'm gonna give it a 15, at least in the middle. Then for the other parts, maybe it's less important. Okay, and here I'll raise it up until it looks like she is smiling. Then to get this to be natural, when we smile, it's not just the lips that move, but it's actually part of the tissue here of the face. So we have to influence that tissue too, which means that I get this part, which naturally kind of formed a crease, see? Because when we placed the vertices previous time, we followed the crease of expression that the character already had. So if I go here and I raise the influence a little bit more, I'm gonna get, okay, this nice version. I'm going to eyeball it a little bit until it looks like a natural smile. And my constraint, my personal constraint is going to be to make sure that this smile does not look too creepy, but it kind of sort of has to look natural, because that's the maximum range of extension that the mouth can have to have a smile. And then from the smile we can derive also the other animations. When I drag these up and down, I can change the colors, so I can control what color everything has. I got the cheek here to move a little bit. I also want the cheek on the other side to be influenced a little bit, maybe like this. It is changing expression in a sort of creepy way, but that's it. That's the movement that I wanted. Let's get the same also on the gentleman, which was Mr. Constantin. Maybe I start from the mouth again. So here we go. Then where's the mouth? Here, 100%. Then here I select these, I assign 100%. Here I select these, and as you see, it's the same process, even if we have a slightly different angle. We get him to smile, and we adjust the weights. Control how much of the crease is influencing this part. Okay, that's good. Here, more. I feel like this is a person that would smile with the cheeks a lot, so more of this area is going to move. Yeah, that sort of looks natural. Of course, if I pause here at the maximum of the range, it's gonna be easier to find out if I selected the right weight or not. Let's also do the eyes, same as before, set to 100%. The green one needs to be 100% of the lower. Here. So, super easy. Is it actually hard to rig a face? No, it just takes a little bit. Here, the bottom one, also to 100%. Then I switch here where they overlap and check that they overlap nicely. They sort of do it, cool. Then I'll change the weights for these two. See, it's just a bunch of pixels, but we're gonna make it work. I select these 4 vertices, assign 100%, 4 vertices, and assign 100%. I attempt to do the same thing as before. First I get it to 100%, then I get it to 50, and then I add once again the influence of these in the middle, so it's not as influenced by those as much. Okay, here I get a little bit of these to influence that part. Yeah, that's the eyebrow, cool. I select both of these and I change them a little bit. Okay, I guess that's good. Let's see. Let's see without bones. Okay, we got the expressions. It was that easy. Fake 3D time. So we go and I'll create this face test. I'll go back to setup and I'll set the constraint for the back of the head to be controlled by this control here, so that when I move this bone, the one in the back also follows, but in reverse. And then one for this face control that I set, so that it also follows this one, but at a slower pace. So first, I'll create a new transform constraint that is controlled by this woman face control inverse, I'll call it, okay? And to set this correctly, all you have to do is press match and then set the translation here to -100 and -100 so that it is fully moving in reverse. Oh, dog incoming. Now what it does is it moves in reverse like this. Then I set another one here on the face, new transform constraint, and I'll pick this as the target. I can leave it as it is. This time I match. I don't set it in reverse. I need it to follow at a slower pace. What pace? I guess I'll set it to, it depends on how much stuff you have from the face to the maximum of the range. In this case, that part is just the nose because she doesn't wear a hat or other stuff that would stick out much. So I could set it to 75, even 80, and it would be fine. Maybe I'll set it to 75. 75, 75. Then if it's not right, I can always go back to setup and change this number until I find the one that is actually correct. Now, let's go here and I'll do the same. So I'll select this, new transform constraint, pick this one, man face control, I'll also call this as inverse, and set match, set this to -100 because this one needs to move in reverse, -100, perfect. This one is a child of the face holder. Okay, I have to get this one out. I accidentally parented it to the wrong thing. It cannot be a direct child, it needs to be independent. I select now this one, new transform constraint, and now I can pick this one. I'll match, set these two to 75 and 75, and we are finally ready to get this all to work. Now, if we look at how this, it's already moving the face in a creepy way. Okay, let's actually switch to animate mode, where I'll get these to do their thing. Okay, face test. Around here is where I want one end to be. Then on frame 40, I key the same, so it does a loop. In the middle, I move it in the opposite direction, which should be this one. In here, I move it up. And in here, I move it down. When everything is not constantly moving, that should be around the height of the lips, more or less. The result is this. I know it looks super creepy at first, but we're gonna get all of these to then match and simulate the planes. Okay, let's also do it here. Actually, in this case, we sort of orient ourselves with the features of the face themselves. I'll move it a little bit on this side, a little bit on the opposite side. Yeah, that's too much though, because if I move it this much, then I can see the after image of this man here. So I'll move it up, I'll move it down, and that's gonna be it. What I like to do at this point is to get the keyframes from this and get them in so that I can see the various features cycling, so they kind of move their facial features while this is moving, so I can get an idea if this is still working with the eyes closed or stuff like that. Let's get it to not be creepy. One first simple way is to assign at first the outer ring here to move a little bit in the back, unless it's something that belongs to the front, like a hat. So it sticks out a little bit and then it's supposed to go in the front. Whereas if it's supposed to go in the back, we want it to move it with the back of the head. So for this, I'm gonna select the external ring like this. Maybe this one is going to follow the face more actually. And I'm going to assign to this the inverse control, okay, inverse, and start raising the influence. It does not have to be 100% because then we'll create a cone head. If you've seen the film, it's a very old film. Something more toned down like this. I don't want it to be exaggerated, I want to have it a little bit to work. But it's very useful when some characters have stuff that goes a lot in the back, like a very large hat with a large brim. So it needs to have all that space in the back, or maybe very voluminous hair or things like that. To simulate the fact that this is actually following and rotating with the head, I think I'll need to select these parts and get them a little bit to be influenced by the inverse of the head like this. Then this part here, it makes it seem like she has this sort of thing in the head. We need to select this ring. See, this is why when we were creating the mesh last time, we created everything in a sort of circle. It's because it makes it easier afterwards to rig these various parts. And I'm going to raise the influence for these so it gets closer to us, and I'm getting more influence of the face holder. This is a hat. It's hard to see, but there's a hat here. I need to push this hat a little bit more in the front, so I'll get it to be influenced a bit more like this. Here, this should be a little bit more in the back. Now, to get this to be nice and spherical and not conical, I need to tune the weights at this point. But more or less, when you start by changing this a little bit, you're gonna get overall good results, so I recommend to start by doing that. Where the forehead is, I'm going to select this border of the face, and I'm gonna give it more influence of the woman head to once again make this a little bit more spherical. I think that this needs to be a touch stronger, and then I fine-tune this. Then I will focus more on the face, but I need to get this to be better at first. This part that is in the back is moving too much, so I feel like most of these parts will have less of the inverse control, so that they kind of don't rotate in the back as much. Here, this, let's look at it without the bones. Okay, we clearly have a problem also here on the neck. Let's fix this. So it's a very easy fix. We just have to get rid of the face holder there. And that is accomplished by giving 100% of the head. And I will need to also have these to have less strong woman face holder influence and more of the face. So it starts to follow the right structure. Oh yeah, something like this. And suddenly, it's starting to look round. I'll select this again. There should not be any inverse influence. At least it's easy to see when I pick the wrong weight. I think this is the right distance, which means that I have to push more in the front, these two, looking a bit nicer. Then I can stop here where I see that half of the face is melting. So I'm going to change the weights for these and assign them a little bit. Then I have to look at it while it's moving, because from a static version, the static version is good to kind of reconstruct the face quickly, but then you can fully get the feeling of how something is in the back or in the front while this is playing only, basically. What about the earring here? Can we do better? If this is moving, this also has to move. And there's another earring here, but I completely ignored it, so it does not feel solid at all. I could change the structure to also take that into account, so I can edit the mesh and create a couple more vertices that will deal with the earring, maybe like this. Now if I go back here, now I have the ability to push this part to be more in the front by assigning a little bit more of the face holder, especially here and here too. So I give it more of an edge. Should have separated that if I wanted to have a good result. I did not, so now I pay the price. If I want to have the ear to stick out a little bit more, which I did not do earlier, I could also add 2 vertices here, so that now instead of getting them to be flat, I can push them out by at first removing the inverse control, and that already makes them. Then I'll stop here where they overlap and control the shape that this has. So if I want the ear to stick out more, I do this. Okay, they overlap slightly too much here. Okay. And with this I get the ear to be completely out, and I reconstruct it It's like ear surgery. The last thing that we need to do is to get the face to also have that same 3D-ness. So for this, I'll at first identify what needs to stick out the most, and that usually is, so the tip of the nose. I always imagine it like this. If I were to smash into a wall, what would be the first thing that would smash? And that would be my nose. The second thing would probably be the chin and the lips, maybe the forehead, and then the last thing of the features of the face would probably be the eyes. So the eyes are a bit more inset. Depends also on the person and how the facial structure looks like. It's true that there isn't much of a difference on all of these parts, and a lot varies on the angle. Like if I go and hit into a wall by looking sideways, then this part will hit first. Okay, we have to kind of imagine it like this. That's how I visualize it. We said that we need this to be the most influenced. It gives us an extreme to work with. Let's fix the bridge of the nose, because the bridge of the nose is kind of also not flat. And that will be like this. Here, this also needs to have not shoulder but face influence. Okay, and the more I give it influence, the more it will stick out. Here, we said that this part also tends to stick out a lot. So I can already, and this is why for me it was so important to assign 100% to all of that area. I'm gonna rob that area of the influence that I gave it to assign it instead to the 3D-ness. So here I select face control, I increase a little bit this influence, and now it looks like it's more prominent here too. And then also a little bit of these, because there in the middle it's a bit more inset. Let's look at it from far away. Yeah, she looks like she could have a slightly hooked nose. I'm not sure though. So if I want to have more control, because like here is where the shadow actually ends, so I could add a couple more vertices. I can at first assign 100% of the face control, but then give it back face holder, so I can control the shape of the nose itself. Okay, here I'll increase maybe a little bit of the influence. Face control. Here I'll get these ones, because they are not that inset. I'm going to also get them to have a little bit of influence, so they stick out a little bit more, but just a little bit, not too much. And that's face control. And I get it to be like this. Actually, these two could have a little bit more of prominence. And we said that the lips, not the inside of the lips, only the external parts. Oh, look at this. So realistic. Of course, it's only a little bit. And the top one should stick out a little bit more than the bottom. Here I select all four, and I think maybe a little bit of these two. These parts feel like they should go more in the back, and so instead of being at the same distance as the rest, they should get more woman head influence. Especially this one, because it's not perfectly looking at us. One side is asymmetrical, and so I get to control the precise distance at which all of this is. Okay, what I just noticed is that this now looks like she has no chin. I need the chin to stick out more, so I'll give this a little bit more influence. These two that need to stick out more, and just by a fraction. Yes, it feels like this is good. I think I should get maybe these two to be a little bit more in the back, so I'll assign more of the woman back like this. Yeah, then we'll actually get a decent animation for this, but at first it needs to have these generic weights, and as you see, with this we're already done. Okay, I'll go to the other side, where we still have these all ready to set. Ah, that's so creepy. Here, the matters are a little bit more difficult, because the face is not looking straight at us, but it is at a certain angle, so some of the things that we did before we cannot apply, but we can do most of them anyway. We start from the external circle here. I'll get it to work, but like very little. Then I'll get this ring to have more face holder influence, to also have a little bit more of the face holder influence. This needs to be a bit more in the front because it's actually the ear. This part does not have to be influenced like that, and this... Okay, here's the difficult part. There is no face here, but the face is kind of dragged in this direction, and he's sort of missing that part of the face. This is where we perform reconstructive surgery, and so we have to kind of drag all of the ways in place, which is why it's better to start from a front-facing version of the character. You have all the parts, and they get compressed, whereas here we're not gonna be able to do that. But first, I'll get this 100% of the influence, so it's doing this. Kind of liquefies half of the face, but at least it retains the proportions. Maybe it does not need to be 100%. It can have a little bit of the influence of the face holder, so it's more like this. Yeah. The part that is the closest to us, remember when I was talking about smashing into walls, but from the front or from the side? Now this time, the part that hits first is actually the cheek, and maybe part of your nose, depends on the angle. In my case, it's always my nose because it's very long. So, I'm going to get this side of the nose to be mostly influenced by the control. Maybe this, I'll try this at first and then probably I'll tune it down, I'll see. Face control 100%, and it does this. Here we said we select both of them and we get it to do this. Here this also needs to be influenced a bit more. Here this part for sure sticks out more, and we said that the cheek is actually the part that hits the wall as well, so this cheek needs to really stick out. Crazy, because with the other face at the other angle it was not like this, right? Here maybe I'll get it to be a little bit, actually more the chin. I think it would be more useful with the chin, and half of the lips, the part that is closer to us, so it sort of looks like this. Okay, clearly here I should tone down these deformation, not with this but with man head, until it looks like it's attached to the head, so probably something like this. I'll get this to also be tuned so it feels like the head is round and nicely attached. Here, what is happening? This needs to stick out more, these two. Here, this needs to be more inside. Okay. This is the part where I'm tuning these, and so I move every individual vertex until it satisfies me. Now look at the hairstyle. Here it's like it's closer to the scalp, so it needs to be flatter, and this, to retain the hairstyle, we need to leave this part to be influenced more, so it follows more the shape of the hair in this case. On this one, this is flatter, so it does not need to have the same weight. Okay, and it's starting to look round. Okay, now I can focus on fine-tuning. This side here should not drag so much when it's looking in the most difficult extreme, which is this. We see that it's not gonna be good. It's like half of his face is kind of getting disintegrated, so we're gonna be trying to do things to save it, but it's gonna be hard. Okay, maybe like this. And then here I'm also gonna attempt it a little bit. For the nose, I'm likely going to add a double border so that I can have the nose detach a little bit more. I'll get this to be more on the head. This part here needs to stick out slightly more, so that's gonna be more on face control. This too, a little bit. On the cheek, a little bit more. Here, this needs to go more in the back. This more in the back. This too. This should be more in the front, because it's the glasses. It's hard to retain the glasses. They should be separate, so we're kind of gonna pretend that it's not really there. It's like a tattoo on this person. Yeah, I'll add that additional control to the nose, so I'll let it demesh. Here, what I'm gonna do is create a second vertex that I'm going to bring here, and yeah, I'll basically create a double border around this, like this, so that I can now get the part of the nose of the more internal double border to separate and create more depth, so it can now do this. Then I guess that one of these could be less strong, but which one? Let's try with these, more face holder. That gives me a flat nose. So I guess that I can tune down this specifically to give this nose a different shape. I feel like this part could be pushed slightly more in the back, so I need to assign slightly more head influence. And also specifically this one could go more in the back, more like this. This a little less. This too strong, so it needs to be a little less, like this. I want to also get this side to stick out a little bit more. Maybe also this, slightly. Maybe I'll tune this down. I'll stop when it is pushed more here, so I can control these more precisely. For these, how do I fix it? I give it more influence of the body. It needs influence of the body, and maybe I need to change the mesh so that it's more separated. I should modify it to be a tad more in the front, and here I have to ensure that this is actually weighted on the body completely. So here this is gonna be, what is this? Man. Okay, it's called man. So these two need to have 100% of the influence of man. Okay, so it looks more anchored in place, and this two needs way more man influence because it's not supposed to move that much when one rotates the head. Yay! It wasn't that hard to do. Okay, now I can create a new animation. I'll call it idle because I don't know. What could they be doing? They're kind of looking at the picture and breathing and maybe nodding at themselves while looking at the picture or stuff like that. You are not looking at the picture. Not even in the original. What is she looking at? Ah, the corner here. Then he's clearly looking at the picture. I'll just try to get some movement in and then we'll see. Too bad they don't have flappy things because it would have been very cool to add some physics to this. But let's see. I'll make images unselectable at this point because I don't need them. I'll get this maybe to rotate like this, and maybe I'll get her to look more down like she's leaning. Also, I'll move to frame 10. Here he could also be like leaning a little bit forward like this. So at first I'll get the various bones to move, and then I'll offset the position of this to make it a bit more natural. Then here he could be looking at the picture like this. What about this? Oh, this is the cool one to move around. So it could be moved like this. But not too much. I can maybe move it up. I just noticed now that I left the after image there, which limits me in the way I can move this. They could change slightly expressions here. So she could actually smile, but not in a creepy way. Maybe something like this. Oh, I could also rotate this, so it actually looks like a smile. And also slightly vary the position here. Do I get her also to have it smiling like this? Oh, she's smiling now. Actually, yeah. Then maybe she's looking down like this. Then at this point, what is he doing? I already moved this one, so maybe he's also... He was already smiling, so maybe I'll get him to not smile as much. And instead, do this. Yeah. Then, so he's like, or something like that. Then let's create the missing keys, and I'll get the loop to happen like this. Right now it does not look very realistic, but the cool thing is just that we move the parts and then we offset them properly. In her case, I have this that I can move around, and it just means that I should move it a little bit like this, and it should help me give the effect of someone breathing. If it's moving in sync with the rest, it's gonna be horrible, so let's take it out for now. But it feels flat now, so maybe like this. Okay, this is where they start doing the things. So I'll also copy and paste some of the keys, so they kind of hold a pose and then change into another pose like this. So now they're kind of peaks like this. I'm going to apply curves. And then I start offsetting things so they don't look as stiff. So maybe it keeps moving most of the time like this. Maybe I'll even make it longer. To make it not like that, maybe I can offset these. So it happens first. Yeah. They could cycle through 3 poses instead. So if they cycle through 3 poses, it means that instead of going back to this, okay, which... For me, it means that it's better if I keep all the keys at first the same, and then I offset them so I have better control of what is happening during these phases. What is the third pose that they could be doing? Okay, I'll deselect, move this to the side. And in here, I'll get them to do something different. So maybe he is doing this to get closer, but she is doing something different, like she goes back slightly, maybe. Then here, she is rotating a little bit the neck. No rotation. We're gonna translate it again. And she is going to maybe look on the other side like this and rotate the eyes like this. Can she be angry? No, not much. Beautiful. Now, what are we going to make her do? Okay, I'll get the keys that I had here on frame 40 for now. The ones on frame 10, I need them to be here. Okay, and the ones that I had here needs to be here. Now they are cycling through 3 poses. Yeah. So it's not like they're going back and forth from one pose, they are kind of doing various things. Okay, in this other pose, maybe he's moving the arm a little bit. Yeah, okay, like this should be correct. Maybe he's gonna nod to her and they're like gonna do this while this happens. So after this, they could like look at each other. So as you see, what I'm doing is at first I'm getting the poses in. Could even not have any distance. I could get them all to be, I'll use shift for this, to be at the same distance. So I can just literally focus on the poses at first. So first pose, second pose, third pose, and then they go back to the beginning. Then let's get them to, okay, this is the beginning pose. Let's get them to here, look at each other. They can't really look at each other because of the limitation that he has, but he can maybe, I don't know, sort of rotate the head to pretend he's looking in that direction, but I can simulate that she is looking more at him. We're kind of limited. I can't create a side view from a drawing, but I can push it as much as possible, so maybe this is gonna be enough. To get him to look in that direction, I have to translate the eyes like this. Yeah, that works. It always works. To get her to not have void eyes, I'm also gonna do the same. So it looks like she is looking in that direction. Bit unorthodox of a method, but it usually works. See, now she's looking that way. Then I'll create the missing keys here. The missing key is here at the end, and the ones here. Oh yeah, okay, now they're looking at that, they're looking at each other. Very nice. I blocked the poses. Now to get this to be decent animations, first I apply curves to everything so they are kind of smoother. Then I want for sure these to last longer, it cannot be such a short animation. To get everything to not be so stiff, we kind of just move the various parts. So I don't know, maybe the torso takes a little bit longer to do this, or what I usually do is every part I get it either to be offset a little bit, so a couple of frames afterwards. So I offset it by a couple of frames. Oh, see? And it's already like it's following the motion instead of going so in sync. I'll do the same here. Couple of frames. Here I'll also get the last keys to here from this pose and this transition to last a tad longer. I am going to add more movements in between to add flavor to these once they transition from one pose to another, like his eyes moving, the blinking, maybe some micro expressions, and also when they are moving the faces. So instead of doing this, you should do this. So I am going to move the keys and it's going to do more this. Maybe he looks at her and then he nods. So I'm going to keep that there. Here's the nod. So first he raises and then lowers. Like this. I think he should be looking like in this direction. Then again here. Yeah, so it's looking like he is admiring the painting. And then he nods. Okay, when he nods down, I think this should happen faster. So he raises. And let's change the expressions. The expressions are what sells this. Maybe he starts like this. He is focused, so he does this. Yeah, and then a bit more, but then up, because he's kind of smiling. Copying this, then he does a nod, then he's again having a slightly happy expression, and then back here. Definitely, I need to time these better because it looks... So if this is the final pose, here he should... I don't mind the rotation, but I feel like I did it in the wrong spot. Oh, that's nice. Yeah, feels almost believable. Now let's focus on the eyes. So he's also using those eyes, blinking, etc. Here he's getting focused. So maybe he squints. Keep it for a while. Then go back to center. Then unsquint. But slowly. Okay, I should probably hold these a tad longer, and these should happen afterwards. And I think he should blink here. So I'm going to get here, and okay, then for these I'll change the curves, and I think he should blink again also a second time here, and I'll get these parts to close. Also, when one blinks, the eyebrows also rotate, if only a little bit. Here too. She is sort of void for now, so I could focus on her now. But maybe she is looking like this. And then when she reaches this part, at first she goes more down. So not too much. Maybe like this. Like this. Okay, what is she thinking while she's doing this? She's doing this. And then she is focused. More focused. Okay, then I'll translate them maybe slightly down. I'll get her to blink as well sometimes. There, she is smiling here. I should maybe get this to be closer so it resembles more the original pose for this. Here where it gets so large, I think I'm gonna get rid of this key. Okay, so it's a bit more subtle. Maybe she nods first. I think I'm satisfied with this animation. We animated a painting of two people looking at a painting. We got the 3D face, I used it to do cool stuff. Could maybe add the breathing in. And then this is mostly completed, yeah. The key here, she is breathing like this. Let's say that she breathes twice. So then here it should be raised tiny bit like this. And then I just copy and paste these keys. And now she's also breathing like a human person. I could also get him to breathe. So at first I'll key here the rotation in the middle, and then around here he takes in the breath. Paste here. I could offset it so they are not breathing in sync. Maybe when he breathes I actually get him to be translated slightly up. That would make sense. I'll key the translation. Okay, so it's just a little bit. Apply curves, anticipate. Then I guess this is the end of today's session. That's the final painting. Imagine putting this in one of those animated frames on the wall, and then you have them animated. I guess it would make for a nice museum exhibition where you have all these paintings animated next to the actual paintings, or something like that. Would be I would be mesmerized to look at them. Or you could also go for some sort of interactive kind of situation where you could add some tracking to the characters, and then you have an actor moving the painting. Or also you could get them to follow a mouse like I did with the owl project. There's also streams on how to set that up in the vortex stream in case you want to do animated paintings that follow you or follow your mouse. So yeah, we have seen how to rig the bodies and how to rig faces, one front facing face and a three-quarter looking face. We got some subtle movement on these. They do a variety of expressions. Well, thank you again for following until now. Okay, it would look nice like a screensaver in this version. Super. If you actually do happen to make things following this sort of tutorial, please tag me in it. I love seeing what you create. Like, it really makes me happy. So yeah, thank you again for all of you that followed until now. There were a bunch of people. I really appreciated that. Thank you again, and bye bye. Have a lovely week.